talent to provide tailor-made crisis acting, end quote. Tracy even cites a company called Crisis Actors that provides actors to use in safety drills and the like. Apparently that is supposed to bolster his case. And by the way, there is such a company, and they are appalled by his comments. In a statement today, they said, and I quote, "We're outraged by Tracy's deliberate promotion of rumor and innuendo to link crisis actors to the Sandy Hook shooting. We do not engage our actors in any real-world crisis events, and none of our performances may be presented at any time as real-world events or as a real-world event." Now, when a local reporter caught up with Tracy and asked him about this outrage his theories might trigger, here's what he said. We had 20 families that were mourning that buried children. Are you concerned about that at all?
Well, I think that the entire country mourned about Sandy Hook. And yet, once again, the investigation that journalistic institutions should have actually carried out never took place, as far as I'm concerned. I think that we need to, as a society, look at things more carefully. Perhaps we, as a society, have been conditioned to be
Now, I don't even really know what that means, what he was saying, what the words coming out of his mouth means. The reporters on the ground didn't work to find out what happened there on the ground. It's beyond crazy. Everybody asks questions, so that's what we do. Journalism isn't a perfect science, of course. But to suggest that somehow means the shooting didn't happen, that 20 children weren't killed, that families didn't suffer and aren't still suffering, is beyond comprehension and obviously deeply offensive to many. As we said, Tracy's not the only one spinning conspiracy theories on YouTube and online. He's from a website whose name I'm not going to use today. I frankly don't want to give him extra traffic. Some are even claiming that 6-year-old Emily Parker, killed in Sandy Hook, didn't actually die. Now, as proof, they point to a dress, the dress she was wearing in a family photo before the shooting. It's the same dress that Emily's little sister wore when President Obama met with victims' families. So the people online, these conspiracy theorists, are saying that's actually Emily on President Obama's lap. It's a sickening claim, obviously. There's no other word for it. And there's another one on another website I'm not going to name either. They even use an interview that Noah Posner's mother, Veronique, did on this program to make its point. There's some of that interview. Before I tell you the absurd theory, watch the conversation I had with her. How are you holding up?
Mostly when I'm kind of numb, you know. I think about, and I think every mama out there can relate to the fact of how long it takes to create a baby, those 9 months, that you watch every ultrasound and every heartbeat, and it takes 9 months to create a human being, and it takes seconds for an AR-15 to take that away from the surface of the earth.
You know, this website says that Veronique Posner appeared way too composed, that she wasn't crying, her eyes weren't red, and that's not how a grieving mother looks. Which I gotta say is just among the most ridiculous things I've heard. I mean, I've interviewed so many people in grief. I've experienced grief myself. To say that there's one way that someone should grieve is beyond ignorance. Now, unless you frequent these types of conspiracy websites, you probably never see them, and again, we would never mention them. But James Tracy, here it is again, is, as we said, a tenured professor at a public university. Taxpayers pay part of his salary. In Newtown and beyond, his comments are triggering intense outrage, as you can imagine. In a statement, Newtown, Connecticut's first election, Pat Godra, took aim at Florida Atlantic University, saying, "Shame on you too, FA News, to even have someone like this on your payroll." I can assure you, sadly, that the events here in Newtown unfolded exactly as they're being reported. The horrible outcome, the violent death of 26 innocent people, including 20 children. Now, we invited Professor Tracy to come on the program. He's a professor, he talks in front of students. We would think he would be willing to defend his thesis. He declined. Our invitation stands. John Zarella, a reporter, went to try to find him. John joins me now. So you weren't looking for this guy, this professor. And again, we like to offer people a platform, and if they have an argument which is valid, you know, we want them to express it and see if it actually holds up to scrutiny. You caught up with him. What did you learn?
Yeah, and Anderson, we absolutely tried again today to get him to come onto your program live this evening, or at the very least, to give me an interview on camera to explain his position. But Professor Tracy said that he just was not willing to do it at this time. So we went to his house this afternoon, and he respectfully declined to come outside and meet with me or talk with me at all. conversations I had with him today. During the first conversation I had with him, he said that he would provide me an email response to some of the criticism that he has been under, the fire that he's been under. And he says in part in his email response that his observations have been reduced to headlines and sound bites, placing him in a severely negative light. He goes on to say he's confident he's putting he's doing any decent and reflective citizen, journalist,
only want like $400.
And he concludes by saying, I apologize for any additional anguish and grief my remarks and how they have been taken out of context and misrepresented may have caused the families who lost loved ones on December 14th. At the same time, I believe the most profound memorial we can give the children and educators who lost their lives on that day is to identify and interrogate the specific causes of their tragic and untimely demise. End quote, Anderson. So, I know you also asked the president by the way, what is he a professor of? Like media studies? Yes, communications. In the Department of Communications, that is correct. Okay. Instantly, the guy who's in the Department of Communications does not want to communicate to the media or address this in the media at all. When you ask the president of this college, of this university, FAU, about it, what did she tell you? Are they standing by him? Right. We talked to President Mary Jane Saunders, and they are clearly distancing themselves from Professor Tracy.
We want to make it very clear that he is speaking as an individual. He was not speaking in his role as a professor at FAU, and the university has a very different statement about the shootings, the terrible tragedy that took place at Newtown, Connecticut. The university does not support this position, and I personally am heartbroken about the additional stress to these families at this time.
Now, there's no word on what the university could or would do, Anderson. He is a tenured professor, as you mentioned, and in fact, the blog that he writes on is not in any way affiliated with the university. Now, people are free to express themselves as they want, but I think, if he's a legitimate professor, he should be willing to defend his statements. And again, I just want to reread what he said on his personal blog. In that statement he gave, which it's sort of kind of a non-apology apology, the old, I'm sorry if I offended anyone from how my statements were taken out of context. I'm not sure what the context is of this. From his personal blog, he said, one is left to inquire whether the Sandy Hook shooting ever took place, at least in the way law enforcement authorities in the nation's news media have described. And then he suggested there may have been, quote, trained actors working under the direction of state and federal authorities and in coordination with cable and broadcast network talent to provide tailor-made crisis acting. As if, I don't even know how that would work, that the news media would somehow meet with government officials and then somehow hire crisis actors who I've never even heard of to then go into Newtown, no one else noticing, and somehow pretend to be, I don't even know who, grieving parents, pretend to be law enforcement personnel. It's stunning to me. Yeah, it certainly seems stunning and outlandish. But he said also in the notes, the email that he sent to me, that the news media failed to thoroughly investigate every aspect of what happened in Newtown. So, but clearly it seems by his statement that he had here, his last statement, that he's at least attempted to back away from some of what he wrote, those really strong remarks he wrote in that blog. And also, the same failure to investigate, yes, you don't have access to the crime scene, so in that way you cannot go in and measure things and take blood samples and things, so you are in some ways relying on government officials, law enforcement officials, but I talked to grieving family members and, who heard from, it's very, obviously upsetting to a lot of people who were there and spent a lot of time there and are still there dealing with the aftermath of this coming up to the 1 month anniversary. And again, we continue to extend an invitation to this associate professor because it would be interesting to hear what he has to say. John, I appreciate your reporting and spending the day trying to track him down and get him to talk. Joining now is Salon.com political reporter Alex Sykes-Walt, who did your early reporting on this story, which is where we initially heard this stuff. Also Jonathan Kay, the National Post, and also
among the truthers and journey through America's growing conspiracist underground. So Alex, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around these theories. It's not like they're coming just from one person or group. And there are websites, YouTube videos, blog posts, all devoted to these absurd theories.
Yeah, there's really a surprising universe out there. If you Google Emily Parker's name, the girl you mentioned who the conspiracy theorists think is actually alive, the very first result that comes up, at least when I Googled it, was a conspiracy website. One of the most polished, professional-looking videos was produced by 9/11 Truther Company. They produced a video after 9/11 that got a lot of attention. This one kind of ties it all together, and I just checked a few minutes ago, it has almost 200,000 views on YouTube. Alex Jones, went off against Piers Morgan the other night. His website has a whole community forum section where there's dozens and dozens and dozens of postings about these things. And if you just Google Standing Hook Hoax, you can find all kinds of things out there. So this is a real strain within the movement out there. You know, these paranoid people who think the government is coming to snatch their guns.
And I mean, this is not, we talked, Cameron, we talked to a number of families today who didn't even want to come on camera because they are too upset about this to even address it. The fact that Emily Parker's family, if they Googled her name, or anyone who knew Emily Parker Googled her name, and the first thing that would come up would be this sickening conspiracy theory based on the fact that her sister wore the same dress that Emily Parker had once worn in a photograph to meet President Obama. I mean, that is just adding insult to injury. Jonathan, why do we